Hey, it's Mark Bossert from Top Local Lead Generation. We're here with David Fairbairn. David's a building and home inspector here in Vancouver. How are you doing today, David?
I'm great, Mark. How you doing?
Good. Really good, actually. So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. How does one go about choosing the right home inspector in Vancouver?
Well, Mark, there's a couple things you're going to want to do before you start picking home inspectors. You need to understand how the inspection industry works in BC. In BC, all home inspectors are required to be licensed. So, you're probably not going to be able to find a home inspector who's not licensed. And if they don't have a license, you're going to want to run away from them. It would be similar to going to a dentist who doesn't have his license. This is somebody who should be a trained professional. Obviously, anybody who doesn't have one, that's your biggest thing. But of course, in BC, all home inspectors are required to be licensed. So when you're choosing an inspector, they may tell you, "Well, I'm licensed." Well, that it kind of puts us all on similar ground. But what you should do, there's a couple ways you can find a home inspector. One is to speak to your real estate professional. Um, in Vancouver, I don't know if it's common in other areas, but in Vancouver, the real estate agent will actually give you three names, usually, of three inspectors that they trust, and then you can do your research on that, call them, find out what they offer, and then pick one of the three. So that's probably the most common way to find it, is to speak to your real estate agent, or of course, going on the web, Google, or having a look around and seeing if there's a website of an inspector that you trust, and that somebody who appears to offer a good selection of services at a good price. So those are usually the two ways: is either the internet or through a real estate agent.
So I guess there's some sort of association that you guys have?
Yeah, basically in BC, to get our license, we have to be a member of an association, and there's a number of associations in actually Canada that you can belong to, that satisfies that requirement to get a license. So you may hear inspectors talking about different associations. I like to think that it's not really about which association you belong to. However, there are pros and cons of each one. I'm a member of the Canadian National Association of Certified Home Inspectors. There's another one called Canadian Association of Property and Home Inspectors, also known as CAFI. There's ASSTTBC. So there's actually quite a few, and I guess the upshot there is that if they try to really force one association on you versus another, I would probably steer clear of that, because it doesn't always guarantee that you're going to get a quality inspector. You should be looking at the inspector on their merits alone, and not their association.
What other qualifications should I be looking for?
Um, Now, you can take the course. You could go out right now and take some courses and become a certified home inspector, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have real-world experience. And I think this is one of the things that people find, is that the home inspector that they're choosing does not have any prior contracting experience or engineering experience. Um, in some cases, the person was maybe working in an office before, and now they're all of a sudden out inspecting homes. And while that's well and good, I like to believe that the education is good enough to get you up to speed to do a proper, quality job. However, in some cases, the person doesn't have the background to identify problems that may not be something they may not be exposed to in the classroom, right? So ideally, if you can find a home inspector who has engineering or contracting experience prior to being a home inspector, that's, for me, that's a huge thing. Of course, I have shameless plug. I have engineering experience and contracting experience as well prior to becoming a home inspector.
So, if I could sum that up, it's just because you watch building shows on TV, don't make you a contractor.
That's correct. Yeah. As much as I love HGTV, it's a lot of fun to watch. It may not actually be realistic in terms of what you'll see in the real world. And a lot of time there is actually a lot of bad information on those shows. I probably call it one error per show. So take it with a grain of salt. It's entertainment, right?
Yeah. So what's the best way to find an inspector? You kind of outlined a couple of them. What else would be your advice in that regard?
Yeah, look for somebody who, I always say that take a look at two things, which is the sample report. So if you can get a copy of the home inspection report from your inspector and see what kind of product you're going to get, because you'll get everywhere from a paper checklist that's 1 page long and just is a bunch of X's on checkboxes, or you have, I think the longest I've ever seen was a 100-page report with 200 plus photos and descriptions of everything. So there's everything in between, but take a look at the report, because this is the kind of report you're going to be getting, and if you don't understand it or it doesn't make sense to you, you're probably going to want to hire a different home inspector, because it's going to be just as useful on the house that you're buying as it is with the sample report. So get a copy of the sample report, and also find out, one of the things would be how long the inspection takes. If you find an inspector who says he can do it in an hour, he can, but he can't do a good job in an hour. I'm not aware of any home inspector that can do a quality job in 1 hour. Most of our inspections take about 3 hours, sometimes 4 depending on the square footage. We try to keep it around 3. And I find that's a good split between doing a quality job and being efficient at the same time.
So we've been talking with Mr. David Fairbairn. He's a home inspector in Vancouver. For a trusted quality job, he's the guy to call. You can reach him at 604-395-2795 or go to his website, fairbairninspections.com. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Mark. Talk to you later.
You bet. All right.